The greatest power you possess is your ability to choose. Join Lowe's Moore as he reveals how you can begin to maximize that power by exploring yourself on the deepest levels and committing to making lasting and positive changes. Get ready to achieve breakthroughs that will lead to accelerated growth and transformation, because you are now tuned in to The Blueprint.
Why the actions contradict the lamb. I'm fellowshipping when I'm with the fam. That's more relations. That's forming a fun.
Good evening and welcome back to The Blueprint. This is Lowe's Moore. Man, I am really excited today. Number one, while I was on vacation last week, my son, Lowe's III, actually did our first show where we actually are producing the show now. And he did he had tremendous guests on last week, and they did a wonderful job. Very informative, the information. I got a chance to sneak in, and he was talking about I'm supposed to be at dinner, and me and my wife are supposed to be at dinner with some family members in West Palm Beach. And he was like, man, my dad just asked a question. He's supposed to be at dinner. He's not supposed to be asking any questions right now. But it was just nice. Nice to see him. Nice to see them amazing young women who are doing some very powerful things, in the acting industry and producing. And they just got a lot of stuff going on. But welcome back, man. Again, thank you. I want to say thank you up front to all those who have supported the Blueprint podcast. Thank you for your support. Now in our second season of the Blueprint, and we're just excited about where we're going next, and excited about some of the things. So, the Blueprint, the Blueprint podcast. We're here to talk about personal development. We're here to deal with the 7 spheres of influence, religion, relationship, and we're also here to deal with family and education, government and law, media, sports, arts, and entertainment. So the guests come on, and they have a gifting or gifts in one or more of these spheres of influence. And, really just during the pandemic and even now is just to encourage individuals about the importance that you could increase, that you can grow in the midst of this pandemic. I mean, let's be real. This is not the first pandemic. This is not the first tragedies. I mean, we've had wars, and we've had rumors of wars, and we've had all kinds of diseases, and we have all kinds of things throughout history. But we've all had the opportunity. We've all been able to overcome those things in the past. And I believe that we will overcome this as well. Yes, we have to be safe. We have to wear our masks. We have to socially distance. And my wife and I and family, we received the vaccine, and, I guess it's a choice. In some instances, we may be mandated to get that vaccine for the safety of not only just ourselves, but our family and others. Right. And so it may come down to that. But, the thing is that we really want to get this thing under control. And, for myself, I've just learned that how important it is to control your thinking. Thinking is very, very powerful. Thinking is very, very important. And so what you think, what your thoughts are, what your mindset is, what your mentality is, right? You can choose. In this particular situation, I'm going to stay safe, right? That's number one. And I want my family to be safe, and I want my friends and community and everybody to be safe. But in the midst of it, I can choose to be afraid. I can get my mind over into fear, or I can choose to get my mind over into faith. Faith and fear both attract. One tracks the negative and the other tracks the positive. I choose faith, right? And faith or fear is like a snowball. You roll that snowball down the hill, and if you're in fear, it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger to destroy you. Well, I choose faith, and I'm trying to get my faith to get bigger, 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 bigger. I'm expecting, right? My expectation is I'm expecting great things, right? And this is 2021. Man, as we go into the end of this 2021, I'm expecting great things. This is my mindset. My mindset is stuck on faith, not fear. And I'm expecting that some amazing things are going to happen, even in the midst of the pandemic. I believe there's some amazing things that's going to happen to me. Some amazing things are going to happen to my family, right? And I choose to move forward. I choose to live in faith and not fear. I mean, I don't know if that's all right with you guys, but that's what I'm choosing to do. I'm expecting that September on to the end of the year is we're going to have some great months coming up. Never mind the weather. It could be hot, it could be cold, it could be snow, it could be raining, but I will choose, no matter what it is, I will choose to live in faith. I will choose to walk in faith, right? And I will choose to be successful, right? And as I move forward in 2021. So, let me jump right into this so I can get to my guests and we can get to our conversation. But we expecting, I think my wife is going to give me. I got like a little pebble over there on top of that, on top of the freezer over there, and like a little rock. I want to drop that pebble into the pond, right? And we're going to expect a ripple effect. Um, and yeah, she's throwing it to me. See, oh, did you see that come in? Oh, that was nice. Let me see where it is. Up. I'm about to drop that pebble in the pond. I think you could hear it, right? And I'm expecting a ripple effect of this show. And, you know, my guests have so many experiences, stories, things that can help us increase our thinking, increase our faith. So, but before then, today, I want to jump right into it with the book of the week. Yeah, I like this. One of my all-time favorite coaches is John Wooden. If you ever get a chance, check out John Wooden's Pyramid of Success. Millions of businesses across the world and the country have used his Pyramid of Success, and he is the, in my estimation, the greatest coach of our time and before our time. 10 NCAA championship and produced some amazing players. And this book is called Coach Wooden and Me, right? It's a one-on-one relationship between Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but when he was in college, he was Lou Alcindor, right? And they had a wonderful relationship. And then, as you know, Kareem is a Muslim, right? And John Wooden is a Christian, right? And they had a wonderful relationship, and he was like a second father to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Spoke of him in high respect, man. Just a wonderful book. You should get that, man. That's going to be an amazing book to read. Our word of the week, right, is leadership. Now I added something to the front of leadership called servant leadership, right? I believe that, man, even though you may be the leader, even though you may be the man, the woman, right? You may be in charge, right? But I believe that if you add servant in the front of it, right, then you'll serve people, and you would really want the best for all the individuals that you lead. And leadership is a very important and powerful thing. And man, God knows we need some leadership right in this time. So hey, if you've been keeping the chart of the words of the week, man, put this down too. Leadership is very important and very powerful. And then Hill and Pierce Harper affirmation and quote of the week. Um, Again, I'm a John Wooden fan, So, and his quotes are amazing. He probably got like 100 quotes. And so this one says, never mistake activity for achievement. See, you could just be busy, right? You could just be busy, 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 but never achieve anything. So the affirmation is, I am a person who never mistakes activity for achievement. Results is the name of the game, right? If you are not getting any results, I don't care how hard you work. And when I used to play, man, I put in a lot of hours of work. But imagine putting in hundreds and hundreds of hours of work and then actually going on, for me, going on the basketball court and getting no results. No, that work, that activity that you were doing was important or was good for you because of the results that you get. If you get no results, right? Hey, like it says, man, don't mistake activity for results. You can't do it. And then I have the music of the week, right? I mean, everybody should know this, man. This is Stevie Wonder's, man, songs in the key of life. Man, Stevie Wonder's the man. I mean, everybody knows that Stevie is the man, right? And I know if you don't, everybody should have this album right here, songs in the keys of life, Stevie Wonder. And then the movie of the week, I got to tell you just a quick story about this. Cooley High, right? The first time, when I was in the NBA, the VCR was coming out, and I was one of the. I'm not saying I'm one of the first ones, but I bought my mother a portable VCR. Now, nobody in the projects where I live had a VCR, right? But we had one, and one of the first movies I bought was Cooley High, right? Remember Chief was shooting that crazy little funny shot he was shooting. But this is one of the all-time funniest movies, and sad, right? And sad at the end, but it was a great movie, and we don't want to ever forget Cooley High, right? And so, just real quick before I announce my guest here, right? Next week, man, we got Dr. Randy Clark is back. I mean, we canceled him a couple of weeks ago. He's one of the most sought after speakers around the country. And I said, we're going to have to do this again. We're going to have to cancel. We're going to reschedule. And he was just the nicest person. My wife will tell you, Randy's just the nicest person. He just said, yeah, no problem, Lowe's. We got this. My schedule's a little tight, right? And then I said, okay, Randy, I'll be in touch with you. I'll send you a couple of dates. And then he sent me a date. September the 5th. He said, I'm going to make myself available if you're available. And I was like, sure, I'm available, right? And then following Dr. Randy Clark, tonight we're going to talk a little bit about sports and coaching and all those different things. But Dr. Alex Diaz is coming after Dr. Randy Clark. And we're going to get into the mental aspect of the game, sports, the mental edge, with Dr. Diaz. And so, without further ado, again, I want to say thank you to you guys, man, for your support. But I now want to introduce my good friend. Some call him Coach, right? I call him Daryl Jacobs, right? And we want to bring Daryl on at this time. And welcome, Daryl.
Hey, Lo. Good evening, my brother. How you doing, man? Good to see you and good to be present with you.
Oh yeah, I see you got some awards on the wall. And
I'm in my office. I'm in my man cave, as they say, just like you and yours.
Yeah, mine is hidden, but it is here. Well, welcome to the show, man. Before we get into some sports stuff, I always have 3 questions for my guests, right? And want to learn a little bit about you, and before we go into what you're doing right now. But here's the 3 questions: how important is family? How important is education? and how important is faith. So tell me a little bit about family, growing up, mom, dad, siblings, and then we'll go right into the.
Well, thank you for having me on, Lowe's. We met a couple of years ago through a mutual friend, and I was able to bring you into an organization, World Sports Alumni. But I grew up in Paterson, New Jersey. Born in the 60s, of course, towards the tail end of the turbulent 60s, I was beginning to come to realize some things. I saw some things as a little kid. And then the 70s came with a whole lot of changes in the political machine, and all that stuff precipitated, as well. I went to high school in North Carolina. After I finished high school, I went to high school in North Carolina because I always wanted to play for Duke in North Carolina, one of those schools. So that didn't manifest, but it proved to be one of the best moves I made in both my athletic and academic career. Heading to North Carolina. I love my hometown of Paterson, New Jersey, but this began my progression in terms of being away from home and learning about other cultures and people, as well. Then subsequently, I returned home and went to junior college and played there. Then subsequently got a scholarship to a school in Iowa, where I finished up, as well, and then, continue into my professional playing career for a couple of years, and then went into coaching. Started my coaching career at Paterson Eastside High School, and then from there on to the college, and and other coaching opportunities as well. Family, I'm the youngest of 10, believe it or not, 2 different marriages. I'm the only child by my mother and father through their union. Sometimes people don't understand what I mean by what I say that, as well.
Yeah.
I said I'm special. As I said, they always save the best for last, as well. But, being the youngest, I got a chance to see my older siblings and how they navigated their lives. And you learn what to do and not to do in those cases, as well. And then from there, in regards to the educational piece, and that is so essential, especially today. When we was coming along, particularly, I grew up watching you play and some of the other guys, but going to college in my family, most of the time they just wanted you to get a job. Education just wasn't stressed as much. They just said, get a job, but I was always a little bit different, is where I knew education was part of what I wanted to do and have in my life. And it absolutely became essential into my development growth, even more so today, as well. Faith, that's a given. I grew up in a Baptist church. I was baptized at an early age, and I use that as my foundation. I always said the Lord ain't gonna put no burden on you can't handle. And I have many testimonies, like many people, through my journey in life, both personally and professionally as well.
Yeah. And I appreciate you. You're on our men's call on Monday evenings, and we have a great time fellowshipping on the call.
Absolutely.
And thinking a little bit outside that box.
We've heard we've seen some great developments right in front of us with some of the brothers on the call. Things have manifested in them, as well. So, that's been a tremendous experience as well, being on that call and fellowshipping with a lot of brothers who are from different sectors, like whether they're pro athlete, ministers such as yourself. That's very, very essential, and there should be more of those, I think, particularly for Black men. Yeah,
definitely. So, thanks again for getting on, man, because, we take a little time, and you taking time out of your busy schedule. So you're a busy guy, man.
Oh, man, come on, man. Not too busy.
like Tommy on Martin he kept, I don't think he had a job, but you got about 25 of them.
Well, I've been, I'm fortunate. I'm going to ride this thing till the wheels fall off too. It's going to come a point in time when nobody going to want your services. So, you always want to continue to create value. And I can talk about that a little bit later in the podcast as well, when we talk about creating value.
Yeah. And so let's go back a little bit. We was talking about coaching, man. Talk about the whole coaching landscape, that whole experience. And one pivotal question I wanted to ask is, from the time that you started coaching, right, up until the end of the coaching career or coaching experience, were players different at the start than at the end?
No question. Players were far different. Even when I started out as a young coach, when I didn't know what I was doing, I always tell my players they thought I knew what I was doing, but I really didn't. I was learning on the fly. But, I had a great foundation, Lowe's, being able to work with a guy named Tom Barise, who at the time when he hired me coming out of high school, coaching from Patterson Eastside High School to Ramapo College, making $500 a year as a part-time coach. I didn't care about the money. I was a college coach. So, I knew eventually, I didn't even know when I got paid sometimes. I just, I got a check here, so no problem. But, being a part-time college coach was real big thrill for me as well. But I was given the opportunity by Tom Barise, who was the head coach of Ramapo, who's a Patterson native. And he's in that Mike Fratello, Hubie Brown, Dick Vitale. These are all Jersey guys that I had a chance to come into that family and really learn the game of basketball as a young coach and learn the ins and outs about being a coach as well. So, yes, the players are far different when I started compared to when I left the profession as well. Times change. It seemed like it changed so quickly. You can have a certain group one year, the next year you bring in another group. You're like, oh, wow, this is a different dynamic. And the key to coaching is being able to adjust to the players, today, and understanding your players. You pretty much have to be a sports psychologist. You bring in Dr. Diaz on, he's going to talk about sports psychology and the importance of that as well. But you have to be a psychologist because you might have 15 players and with their 15 different personalities, and you got to know how to motivate and speak to each one of them.
Yeah, not only that, I think recently my wife and I was talking to somebody about, I was thinking about, getting a master's at one time. I was looking around, thinking about getting a master's. And at UMass, they had a master's program called Sports Social Work. And when I looked into the description and into the details, they were talking about the challenges that coaches would have when they bring players on, because they're coming from different environments, different cultures, different environments, and you almost had like a coach has to be, well, you said sports psychologist, but also a social worker as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the thing about being sports psychology, one of the things that came later in the study of sports psychology was the cultural aspect, the environmental aspect. I can tell you a little bit of history about sports psychology starting in the 30s and 40s, where everything was so quantitative. But later on, luckily, some people came along and made it qualitative, meaning they began to speak to athletes and began to do observation research in that regard as well. So, sports psychology has come a long way, but it's very prevalent today. Back in the doing when Russia was at the height of Russia, when the government was controlled, that was huge with them. You see them winning the Olympics. You saw all that stuff. They was using sports psychology where we in the Western world was not using it as much. And then later it turned, now Russia is not that much heavily into it. Once, they broke up their union there, they pretty much abolished their interest in really sports psychology, and the Western world's taken over.
Yeah. And I remember when I first started playing at 10, 11, the first team I was playing on with Mr. Jones, and he was on the whole Boston Celtic. He was a big Boston Celtic fan, and so he was training us like the Boston Celtics. And I remember him making the first statement he ever made was that the game of basketball, after you're in shape and you understand the game, is 99.9% mental, right? And I was like physical, I was like, I want to run, I want to jump.
Right.
But a lot of the training had to do with messing with our head, the mental aspect of the game. And, I remember him giving us look like an encyclopedia, right, of plays that we were going to run and out of bounds plays and defenses. And I was like, man, I'm going back to school here, So,
well, in essence, that's what you did. See, back then, it really was no, you gave somebody something. They didn't really know about the learning styles, whether you had the IQ, the capacity to pick up patterns, whatever the case may be. You learned them. because that was given to you. You found a way to learn them. Everything was more visual than anything else back then as well. So, and I happen to be a Celtic fan. I got probably a lot of New Yorkers up here and Knicks fans. And I became a Celtic fan because everybody in my house was watching the Knicks one night, low. I was 5 years old, and they playing the Celtics, and the Celtics was drilling them. I was like, you guys are going for the wrong team because they're getting drilled. So I became a Celtic fan, that night as well. So a lot of people probably say, wow, they probably won't even watch my broadcast anymore with ESPN.
Oh, no. Yeah, we kind of favor JoJo White there,
Oh, yeah. Well, they had a very diverse team. But the town itself, the city of Boston, it has like most challenges when you get into the racial component of things as well. But, they're getting better up there, just like other parts of the country with teams as well.
Yeah. Did you have that little JoJo White stop on the dime?
I didn't have the pump because that wasn't the fundamental way to shoot the basketball. That pump, you didn't have that. But, you got a chance, and people don't realize, JoJo White, 1966, when Texas Western won the NCAA championship with the first starting all-black starting five. Well, on their way to the championship, they beat Kansas and JoJo White. And, on the way to that, a lot of people don't know their history of that. And, that's another thing we'll talk about with the youth. What advice we have for the youth it's understanding your history and knowing where the foundation came from. And, and then you can correlate. There's always a correlation there. If you put it together.
Yeah. And coaching, where did you have the most success? I mean, give us a list of where you coached and where you thought you had the most success.
I've been very fortunate as a coach. I always went to programs that weren't good purposely because I realized wasn't nowhere but to go but up. I realized early that it's hard to follow somebody that was successful. Rather than find, programs that were not that good, as well. Starting at from Ramapo College, I went to Montclair State University, and then the coach left right before the season started after 2 years in. I became the first African-American head coach at Montclair State University. Was picked last that year, and I led us to the playoffs and to the ECAC championship game. I was an interim head coach. Subsequently, I didn't get the job. That's the first time I learned about politics. I thought I had done enough to get the job. I was like, wait a minute. I was the number one seed in the ECAC tournament, went to the championship game, and I'm out of a job. That's the first thing I learned about coaching. At a young age, I said, wait a minute, this is not right. But it proved to be a blessing, let you know that God had my path ordered for me, my steps ordered. Because that same year we played Lehman College. I beat them by 52 points. So the AD found out I was available and then brought me to Lehman College, which was my second head coach stop, and, won a couple of championships there at Hudson Valley, and then on to Felician College, which was an all-girls school, back in the day, and they became co-ed, and I became the coach there in 2000, and I would go out and recruit kids. They'd be like, ain't that all women's college? And, me, I spent the sale pretty much, said, sure, would you rather look at hard legs all day or soft legs? All depends what you want to look at, as well. But that really motivated me because we were not on the map, as well. So I was able to build that program. And, 3 or 4 years later, we was going to the championship game, then broke through one year and won the championship regular season and won the ECA Division II championship. There. Then from there, I went to the University of Delaware and coached with my high school rival, David Henderson. And you might know David. David and I played against each other in North Carolina. David played at Duke. I always say you took my spot at Duke. He was a year ahead of me. And I'll tell you a funny story about me and Dave. Dave was a high school All-American. We, at Northampton County High School where I was playing at, we left one conference and moved into their conference. And all I was hearing about this guy named David Henderson. I'm a junior. He a senior, and of course, when we played him, he's All-American. I figure, hey, this is where I get my pub at. To get a reputation, you got to go get somebody a reputation. I'm from Patterson, New Jersey. I'm not scared of anything. So, I remember walking on the court for the first time, coming up down the court with him. He airball the first time, low, And, you know, with me and my infinite wisdom start talking like, oh, man, you overrated. Well, he proceeded to score like 32. He didn't miss too many the next couple of times down the floor. You know, of course, I'm 5'9", 5'10". He's 6'5". I can't guard him. So we have people on him. And, you know, our big guys were big guys. He's a guard. He was lighting us up as well. You know, that same year, we went 28-4. Guess who we lost all 4 games to? Those guys. So I often tell Dave when he called me to come to the University of Delaware to be his assistant coach, you know, it really wasn't heavily recruiting New York, New Jersey, Philly, in that particular area. And I always say, you always owe me a job because I gave you my junior year. You guys were beating us as well. So, you know, subsequently I went there with him, allowed me to get into the Duke family, which I greatly appreciated. Really getting a chance to know a lot of the Duke guys and learning under David. And subsequently, unfortunately, he was fired. So when he gets fired, guess what happened in this profession? You get fired as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm out of a job, you know, had some good players coming in. And then subsequently, you know, I had to get back on my grind and start interviewing. So Clark Atlanta University interviewed me. Keene University interviewed me. And Maine Central Institute, which was a fantastic prep school, had a lot of players going Division I and later go on to the NBA. And I interviewed at all of them. And this is how good God is. I go down to Clark Atlanta, I fly down there. They offer me the job on the spot after I interview. And of course, you know, at the time I was married and said, hey, we're going to go to Atlanta. The next day, Keene University called and offered me the job. And then the following day, Maine Central Institute called and offered me the job. You know, so subsequently I went to Clark Atlanta University, an HBCU, a program that had only won like 4 games the previous 2 years, not even on the map. You know, just a place that needed some directions and some somebody that can build the program from the ground up, not just on the court, but give it a foundation when needed. It's a great place. I always thought it was a sleeping giant. That's why I took the job. So subsequently, my first year, I walked in my office lows in August. School was starting 2 weeks later. I could not recruit any players. So my first year, I went 2-26 with a bunch of walkouts. But that was my best year of coaching in my life. And people say, wow, why is that? Because it taught me how to be a better coach. You know, I didn't have the talent, but I was in games. And I knew once I go out and get the talents, I can win this conference. So the next year, I was able to go get some players. We had the biggest turnaround in Division II. We won 18 games. And then from there, it was nowhere but up. We became a top 25 team, became nationally ranked, won a couple of championships there, you know, as well. Then on to Virginia State University. I took a job there after I left Clark, you know, to be closer to my dad mainly, you know, because he was beginning to develop symptoms of Alzheimer. And, you know, Petersburg was only about 6 hours away from New Jersey. And then subsequently, I only stayed at Virginia State for 2 years because I had to move back to the New York, New Jersey area to take care of my father in 2019. So, you know, I took care of him till he passed away in 2016. And I decided to get out of coaching. You know, I was burnt out and didn't know what I wanted to do, you know, after that as well. But I just decided I knew it was more than me to being a coach, and I didn't want to be put in a box in terms of my skill sets as well. So, and then from there, you know, did a little bit NBA scouting over the years, you know, fortunate to have some teams call me and reach out to me to do some scouting. You know, I did some professional camps, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, basically that's my career in a nutshell.
Yeah. And then, I had the opportunity to, David Henderson played in the CBA.
Right.
As well. And, he played with a little chip on his shoulder, man.
Yeah.
You know, hey, if you had him, you got to fight. I mean, you in the battle with David Henderson, man. Yeah, he always had the mean mug too. He was
he always looked. I say, Dave, you never smile. never smile, and people would be scared to talk to him when I was coaching with him at University of Delaware. If he didn't do the weekly show, I would go do the weekly show, and people would be like, you know, would you tell David blah blah? And so we used to laugh in meetings that I said, you really intimidate people, you know. Oh. But you know, that was his game face. It served him well. You know, he's part of that Duke first class that successfully got in there that really turned the program, you know, with him, Jay Billis, Johnny Dawkins, Mark Allen, Billy King, who was the GM of the Sixers, and all those guys.
Yeah, and my brother played against Johnny Dawkins, Curtis. He played back against Johnny Dawkins at the time. They had a dunk fest. they know each other real well. I saw Johnny Dawkins, man. We were talking, man. He said, "Man, how's your brother Smiley doing, man? Man, I ain't never seen nobody jump like that, man."
Well, Johnny Dawkins, for the viewers watching, he's the head coach at Central Florida right now.
Yeah.
He was at Stanford, and everybody thought he would be the coach in waiting when Coach K stepped down. But of course, that went to John Shire after this year.
Yeah. No, but those are a good time. And then you mentioned where was Rory Sparrow from?
Rory's from Patterson, my hometown. Rory was one of my mentors.
When I was with the Nets,
right.
Rory and I used to go out on the community tour, go to the high schools and speak to the kids and go to the playgrounds and different things like that. And Rory and I had some well, I don't know if he had I don't know, remember having no battle, but I mean, I know he was having battle trying to
trying to handle you. Huh?
Yeah. But I like Rory. Rory was good, man, doing some nice work with the NBA for over the last almost 20, 30 years, man.
30 years, yeah. He spent over half his life in the NBA as a player, 12 years, and then recently retired, after 26 years. He just retired this past year and moved to Florida. So he spent his whole entire life as a player and a vice president of player development, NBA. So you viewers, if you ever watch the players when they get drafted and the gentleman that was walking them up to the stage,
yeah,
with the ball head, well, that was Rory Sparrow doing that as well. So he's definitely one of my mentors who I talk to weekly as well, who's been very instrumental in me doing some of the things I'm doing, and he's been a great advocate for me as well.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So now you're in the well, I don't know if I want to jump. I don't think I want to jump. No, because I could jump.
Well, we could always circle back anytime you want. We just having a conversation like we do on the Monday calls. We could always move around and come back.
Yeah, well, let me jump because as an African American coach, and all the things that you have experienced as a coach, and now with so many young people trying to get into the business, right? You're now vice president of Rising Coaches Alliance, and so talk a little bit about that, because the Rising Coaching Alliance is helping coaches from the youth age, those who want to coach at the recreation level, those who want to coach at AAU, those who want to move up the ladder. As you see all these coaches up here. Can we see that one more time? See all these coaches up here on the screen there. These are all African American coaches that are coaching throughout the nation. And then I think you had one. I don't know if I have that photo too of the coaches of the year. The African American, right? Look at that. Look at all those, the coaches of the year. And we remember some of them. There were Damon Stoudemire, and Leonard Hamilton recruited me.
I was going to say, you probably know Leonard very well.
Yeah, he recruited me coming out of high school. He was with Kentucky, right? There go Darryl Walker. You wonder what these guys are, and you see in many of these coaches that you haven't seen in a while, and they're all doing very well. And there go James Jones.
Yes.
James Jones was at Albany State University, and now he's been at Yale. I was thinking like a miracle. He's been at Yale for a while. Actually, when my son Losey came out of high school, we went up to visit him. I thought that Losey was going to get an opportunity to play at Yale with James Jones, but he's been there for a long time. He's
been there for a long time, and his twin brother is at Brown. So you got two African American head coaches coaching in the Ivy League, along with Tommy Amica, who's at Harvard.
Yeah.
Duke guy, and Tommy's at Harvard coaching there as well. And this photo illustrates, the opportunity African American coaches are given. These guys won Coach of the Years in their respective conference, and a lot of people didn't know it when I put this up. They had no idea that these coaches had accomplished that, as well. So, and I'm fortunate enough to know all these gentlemen. Of course, knowing Coach Hamilton, who's the godfather of all these coaches you see up here. As you know, Damien Stoudemire played in the NBA. He was able to get in coaching and was able to progress. So was Darryl Walker. Darryl Walker coached at Clark Atlanta. And we're the last two coaches to win championships there. So I'd always tease them. I said, I was the first Darryl to take that program to another level. And so, he played with the Knicks. He was an NBA coach for the Raptors as well. And it's good to see, Darryl doing well at Arkansas Little Rock. And you see Shanique Holloway there.
Yes.
Former All-American, coached at Seton Hall, was very instrumental in them building their program there. Now he's doing a fantastic job at St. Peter's. He was MAC Coach of the Year before, as well. So, it's good. And, of course, you see Grant there from Dayton, who was National Coach of the Year last year, as well. So, it was great to see these coaches. It's great to be executive director of Rising Coaches for the DEI Alliance. If you go back to the previous photo, of those coaches, yes, that's the next up initiative that we put together with my staff. Kim Hampton, former WNBA, All-Star and New York Liberty Legend, is my vice president of women's basketball. And a gentleman by the name of Brian Burton is my vice president of men's basketball. And of course, the CEO of Rising Coaches, who actually is at the forefront of this. Of course, anytime you're doing this type of initiative, Lowe's, it starts at the top. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to become a part of it if I didn't have his full support. He's been tremendous in allowing this platform to manifest. And, Rising Coaches is the largest coaching association in America. Coaches ranging from the NBA, WNBA, college, high school, down to grassroots basketball. This illustration here is the Next Up initiative that we put together. And two of these coaches, Ben Johnson and Ganiat Adani, Ben Johnson just got the head coaching job at the University of Minnesota.
Yes.
Ganiat just got the head coaching job at Colgate. And they came through this initiative that I put together called Next Up. So I'm very proud of the impact that we're having and creating opportunities and preparing them for these type of opportunities that may become before. Whether we're exposing them to search firms, athletic director, college presidents. This is something I was very adamant about in creating these opportunities for minority coaches and women's coaches as well. It doesn't matter what your ethnicity is, but also we want to focus in on those women coaches as well who do not get the opportunity as well. And let me add, this past year was the most in the off season we've seen African American coaches get hired, Low. Out of the 51 jobs that were available, 27 African American men got jobs, coaches, unprecedented. We've never seen this before, even though the numbers are still low. But that's a step in the right direction. And on the women's side, out of the 13 jobs that was available, 6 went to African American women's coaches as well. So we're proud of the movement that we've seen, and we got to sustain it. And hopefully those decision makers will continue to look at minority candidates and see that they're a valuable option in this profession.
Well, yeah, and then my daughter, who was at Fairfield, she just became the lead assistant for Stony Brook. And
right.
Of course, this is the first year for Stony Brook has a new coach too, African American,
right,
female coach as well. And yeah, that's all. This is exciting, and that I think the next thing is, as well as your program is not only just doing coaches, but you're talking about how you get involved in the administrative side in regards
absolutely.
to.
And I'm glad you brought that up. On the administrative side, Dr. Richard Lapchek, for people who don't know him, can actually Google Dr. Richard Lapchek. He's the father of diversity, equity, inclusion in all sports, pro through collegiate athletics. He does his report all the time, and it's the blueprint. No pun intended. It's the blueprint for the hiring of minority coaches in these collegiate athletics, professional sports organizations. He gives you the full scope of where they're at in terms of their hiring practices and the percentage of numbers. And as you mentioned, on the administrative side of collegiate athletics, it's the same way as on the men's side as well and women's side. Close to 90% of those in charge are white males. We're not even talking about white females because white females are considered a minority as well. But those are white males. So we're trying to change that narrative in regards to creating opportunities for minority coaches and women coaches in the profession as well. But I'm glad you mentioned the administrative side as well, because that's something we're working on as well.
Yeah, and so, take a moment let's say this. So if you are an aspiring coach, or I always say, if you love sports, whether you actually play it or you just love sports, right? I always say, to most players, if you play basketball night and day or football, whatever it is, you might want to look at a career, alternative sports related career, when you get out. So sometimes you can't get on the floor, the field, or the diamond, right? And you need to start looking behind the scenes and see all the people that are working behind the administratively and sports marketing and GMs, managers. You need to look into that, and because they're great careers. But one of the things I was thinking about as well is talk to them a little bit about how you get involved with this alliance. How do they, look you guys up?
Well, Rising Coaches, you can go to www.risingcoaches.com and visit our website, and then you'll see different tabs there. You can go into the DE Alliance. You'll find me there as executive director. And
break it down. What does that mean?
The DE Alliance is diversity, equity, inclusion,
Okay.
where we focus on, again, creating opportunities for minority coaches and women coaches as well. We put together initiatives and platforms in which we provide those minority coaches or those organizations. We work with 15 minority coaches organizations throughout the country. And those coaches can range from either having AAU coaches to NBA coaches within the organization. So we provide them with opportunities to learn interview skills, how to put together resumes, how to put together portfolio, how to look for certain opportunities. We provide them all that, but also we provide them access to the decision makers, whether that's search firms, which is huge in this space now. When these schools are looking for coaches and administrators, we give them access to athletic directors, deputy athletic directors, those athletic directors who will become athletic directors down the road, as well. Then those coaches who looking to maneuver within the business, we allow them to network with coaches within the membership as well, to give them opportunities to move up in the profession as well. So that's what the DE Alliance does as well. Then we incorporate, encapsulate a lot of initiatives that we put together, whether it's webinars, training, like you saw, the Next Up as well. We do all that within the organization as well. And then overall, the organization provides coaches development as well. I'm part of the consulting team as well. I have mentees that I mentor. I have 2 mentees that I mentor, and two of them that got college coaching jobs this year as well. And then we provide professional development for the coaches, via our whiteboard, the videos. We have podcasts. It's the best organization in the country. If you're looking to move in this business or create a network or make contact, Rising Coaches is the place to come. And once you become a member, you'll be able to get your feet in the door in a lot of different areas that you normally couldn't get in, trying to do it on your own.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Now, that's a lot of information. So remember, this is interactive. So if you got some questions, Daryl, Coach Jacob, Coach Daryl, he's on here now. If you got some questions, throw some up there. So let's go to what you're doing now, which is you're in the whole journalism thing, and both you and I know, right, that there have been strides made, but more strides need to be made, right, in regards to African American journalists. Because if you go into a NCAA football game and you're in the room where the journalism are, right, you may find one of us there. Even though we're starting to see a few more African Americans on the television, right? When it comes to reporting and news and announcing, there are really very few of us involved with that. And so talk about your experience with that and your. It seemed like you enjoy. I've seen you do a couple of games, man. It seemed like you enjoy because if you love the game and you get to talk about the game, you seem to enjoy it.
Well, when you got a passion for it, I never thought I would be working at ESPN and broadcasting basketball game. It just goes to show, when your steps are ordered, it is you can't fight what God has planned, for you. But you mentioned it that if you go to a lot of games, you see as you go in the reporting room at professional sports events, you won't see a lot of people look like us. Even when I'm going to give you another example. Even when I used to go down to Portsmouth to the NBA to sit on the dais with the scouts, it wasn't many of us. It wasn't many of us, even though we played the game, but it wasn't many of us in those positions, as well. And of course, when I was growing up, watching sports on TV, and this, Lo, it wasn't nobody looked like us, talking the game or at back then, if O.J. Simpson would be on Monday Night Football when I was growing up, but you rarely see somebody doing basketball, particularly even in coaching, as well. I remember, and a lot of people don't know the name I'm getting ready to mention, but he's a New Jersey native, Al Adams, the great Al Ellis, first African-American coach to, Bill Russell won an NBA championship as a player coach, but Al Ellis won it as just a simple coach as well. And seeing those figures, I didn't know, it's something that I can do being a broadcaster. I thought I really wanted to do it, but I said, well, I don't know if there's opportunities for me to do something like that as well. But, subsequently, that began to change a little bit. Of course, being with ESPN, the first thing I get asked is, do you know Stephen A? And I said, of course, I do. And Stephen A was a great journalist. He still is a great journalist, as well. And a lot of people don't know that. He talks about covering sports in Philadelphia, which really jump-started him as well. And his whole show is predicated on barbershop talk. We often get together and we, if you ever been in the barbershop, when I was growing up, I loved going to the barbershop on Saturday to talk sports. I became the know-it-all simply because, Lo, I read. People wonder how I knew so much. I was like, gentlemen, I would tell them years later, I said, gentlemen, I just read. You guys don't read. I read. I just read. That was that simple. They often say if you want to discourage a black man, put it in the book. So I said that was never going to let that happen to me. But I was fortunate enough to be able to do sports, reading the sport pages, Lowe's, and I learned how to read. I learned how to write. I learned how to put together articles just by picking up that paper every day doing sports. But you mentioned the opportunities far between, particularly if you're not a professional athlete. It seems like the professional athletes are getting the opportunity to get on TV as well. If you're somebody in the journalism space coming out of college, you have to be very fortunate enough to get in there. So, but I'm happy to see that there's opportunities being created. I'm happy to see that, I was fortunate enough to get in. And people say, well, how did you get started? Well, I didn't go to school for journalism. I didn't go to school for broadcasting. I was coaching the ABA team, New Jersey Express, and we went to the Elite Eight. And the Elite Eight was being carried by Sports Radio America and ESPN 3. We lost in the first round of the Elite Eight championships. And I was interviewing with ESPN 3. And then after the interview, like 10 minutes later, Lo, they asked me, can I sit on the next broadcast? Because the analyst was sick. He couldn't come back. And I said, sure. And of course, it was only like 20 minutes before the next game. And me being a former college coach, of course, and knowing all these players that was playing in the ABA, I really didn't need no notes at all. So I was able to sit in on the broadcast. That night, I got back to the hotel and I get a phone call that the producer of ESPN wanted to know, can I finish out the broadcast? They would pay for me to stay and everything like that. They said, well, you did a good job. You was able to have those notes in front of you. You take good notes. And when the play-by-play guy told them he didn't have a note in front of him, they were blown away. They were just blown away. And, I grew up, listening to broadcasts on TV and radio, and I would lay in bed at night long. People always say dream. I always tell people dream. And I would do the play-by-play. I would do the analysis. I could do play-by-play as well. But I was doing analysis, listen to Marv Albert and all those guys, do it. And I would just do it. And then finally, when I got a chance to do it, it was so natural for me to do that. So subsequently, after that ABA championship was over, ESPN called me and said, hey, would you like to work our college basketball broadcast? We think you're a natural. You could be one of the up-and-coming top analysts in the business. And I said, sure. So that's how I fell into it. Ultimately, of course, once I got into it, I became better equipped. I started talking to people. I took a few classes as well. And a lot of people don't realize what it goes into when you're preparing for a broadcast. They think I just sit behind a mic and don't realize it takes me sometimes a week to prepare for a broadcast. Watching film, you would think I'm a college coach. I watch more film now than I did as a college coach, interviewing players, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how I fell into it. And my advice for anybody looking to get into it is now is the great time. They're looking for minority reporters, minority journalists as well. Just master your craft. And you definitely have to have a personality for this as well,
Yeah. I remember, my coach used to, for some reason, I always go back to the foundation, with my first coach. And, he used to always say the will to win is not nearly as important as preparing to win. And like you say, they see me on, jumping on here on Sunday evenings. Right. And they may see you in a flow. Right. But the thing is, it started after the show, the Sunday before, when you're thinking about the next guest and
that's right.
Researching them and finding out what they do and finding out everything on social media and everything that you can get off Google and
you don't even tell them about tracking down guests for the next week. You gotta
track down guests.
You gotta recruit guests. When I had my podcast with one of my colleagues from ESPN, one of the hardest thing was just getting people scheduled to come on. And it don't start right after that one broadcast. You got to plan for like months in advance. You got to line your guests up and all that kind of stuff. So, a lot of people don't realize the work that you put in, particularly what you do. You guys do such a great job, with the blueprint. I can remember when this came to fruition when you was talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting that like you say, you always say that, God put some things in place. Back last week, I think it was last week or week before last, I got a call on. We had just gotten back home from North Carolina or South Carolina, where we were, and I got a call on that Tuesday. Hey man, you want to play at Wingfoot tomorrow? I was like, man, Wingfoot is where Tiger Woods played.
Right.
That man. And before I knew it, I had said, yeah, man, I'm gonna play. So I get up in the morning and then I couldn't get in the gate. Because
it's private. You found that, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to get in.
They didn't tell you it was private, right? You forgot it was private.
I get in, and they got a lot of rules. So I'm standing there, and there's a lot of caddies and stuff like that. So I'm just standing there, and I'm on my phone, and the guy who's taking golfers in says to me, "If you want to mess with your phone, can you go in the locker room?" I was just looking at my phone. I wasn't even messing with it. I was like, okay. And then he said, yeah, we're going to have to. And I had a big WVU golf bag, right? He said, yeah, we're going to have to downsize your bag. I'm like, what?
Not your school alma mater bag. Wow.
Yeah. And then, a couple of caddies. And then, he's talking about you're going to walk 18 holes. I was like, walk 18 holes? I was thinking it's like one of the hottest days of the year out there. Like what? And I'm standing there, right? And this guy walks out, white gentleman. See him. I look at him. I point. I was like, "Hey, man, you look familiar like that." And I said, "Like, oh, Mike Breen, like that." And he said, "You think, yeah." I said, Lowe's Moore. He said, oh, man, Lowe's, what's up, man? How you doing?
Did he have nightmares when you?
Well, you know what? He said, yeah, I love watching you play, man. And used to see my son Isaiah, play wheelchair basketball for the Roller Knicks.
Right.
And he said, you wouldn't happen to be Lowe's Moore's son, right? He said, yes, that's my dad. He said like that, oh, I love your dad. He played so well, so forth and so on. So, so we were sharing back and forth. I said, yeah, I got a little podcast, the Blueprint, man. I like to get you on. He said, man, anytime, just give me a call, man. Like that. So, I mean, that's, that's how you get guests,
Yeah, that's how you did. That's how, yeah, absolutely. But, who you are. I mean, I'm just honored to be up here. I'm not Leon, the actor, had up here. You had your former coach, Phil Jackson, up here, and all those guys, man. And, but it speaks in the volumes to what they think about you and the work you've done, both not just as a player, but now with your podcast and a minister, I might add, as well, a minister of the gospel.
Yeah. And then the guy was like, you know that guy right there? Said, he's on television. I said, yeah, I know he's on television. You know him? Like that, yeah. And then Mike Green said, no, this guy right here is a legend. The guy who told me to go downstairs in the locker room.
Right.
Like, well, who are you? Like that.
Well, they don't know the history, but that's part of one of the things I tell the youth today: research your history, because everything is right at your fingertips. We couldn't do that. We had to go to the library and hope that you had the in Botanica Encyclopedia in your house. If you had that, hopefully you had, your mom would buy the A's one year, the B's one year, and if you was fortunate enough to have all of them together, you can read and or go to the library and got to go do the research and all that stuff, the microfiche film and all that kind of stuff. I know this generation don't even have no idea what I'm talking about.
You have no
when
idea.
I say that kind of stuff, but that learned us how to do research.
Yeah. I want to jump into before we continue, time, we get on here. My son said last week, man, you don't know how fast an hour and a half goes when you get on.
Absolutely. It's like our Monday night call.
Yeah, definitely. Just look up and it's gone.
Right.
But I got a curiosity. I want to have a curiosity conversation. It's something I was just thinking about. Right. And it has to do with New England's Mac Jones. You're going to get off the basketball for just a second here. And the Chicago Bears, Justin Fields. Right. So it's pretty interesting. I just wanted to get your thoughts on it because I was just thinking about it. Just thinking about it. So, Cam Newton, had a little protocol, mistake. And so everybody's excited, that, Mac Jones is going to they think he should be starting. Right? They think he should be starting. So, oh, man, everybody's excited. Cam, this is Mac Jones' opportunity. But people would love to see him start. Right? And so it was pretty interesting that Justin Fields, who's been performing as a rookie, he's a rookie too, just like Mac Jones, and yet they want to sit him down and start Andy Dalton, right? When he's definitely performing better, but everybody said, yeah, I just think it's a good deal that he should sit, right? Now I'm like thinking like that was messing with so it's just a curiosity.
Well, you know what? I know sometimes when we look at it and I'll put it on the table. Sometimes we such in a racial profiling society. We don't want to see it that way. And I think both of them are in two different situations, though. Matt Jones went to the best place for him. I mean, the perfect spot for him.
Yeah.
It's tailor-made, for him. Any place else, I don't think we'd be having this conversation about him because the system wouldn't have been tailored to his skill set, as well. Justin Fields has been performing remarkable, as well. And some people say he should be starting and some say he shouldn't be starting. It's the same way with Matt Jones, as well. They're excited about him because he has been performing very well. Unfortunate for Cam, now he's in the protocol. It's the same way how Tom Brady became starting quarterback for New England. If people don't remember, Drew Bledsoe was the starting quarterback.
That's right.
He got hurt And Tom Brady got in there, and Drew Bledsoe never started again. Never came back, and the rest is history.
Yeah,
with that as well. But I think those are two unique situations. Of course, people are excited about Matt Jones. I think he's going to be a hell of a quarterback in that system. I think the offensive coordinator, Tom Brady II in him regarding that as well. So I don't look at it one way or the other, Lo. I think Bill Belichick is going to make the best decision. He understands that Cam has the experience right now. What Matt Jones is going to see is probably things he hadn't seen in the preseason. Because, when the regular season starts, now the defensive scheme changed. Now you got the first team units up there. It's going to be a learning curve for him. And I think Belichick is more comfortable with Cam because he can understand and recognize things a lot quicker as well. Not to say Matt Jones can't, but we will see. So I don't feel about it one way or the other. What's happening doesn't surprise me, regarding Justin Fields or anybody else. But there's a lot of different takes on those different quarterback scenarios with the different teams who should be starting. And it's the same way out in San Francisco.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, it's the same way out in San Francisco. Don't forget Garoppolo led them to a Super Bowl. So many people think, if you're going to get there, but a lot of people think, Love can lead them to a Super Bowl even in his first year. So we'll see. The verdict is out, but we'll see what it comes back with because I think all of them are going to get an opportunity to play this season.
Yeah. And so going back to college sports, and let's talk a little bit about what happened this year. Explain to us a little bit about this whole thing on branding, and now that college athletes can get some resources from certain venues. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, the thing that is happening in college basketball is something that's been brewing for a long time, ever since Ed O'Banion took the NCAA to court regarding the name, image, and likeness debate. And he took them to court over 20 years ago in regards to filing the antitrust lawsuit in regards to Division I basketball players and football players to be able to profit off their name, image, and likeness after they graduate. Because as you know, the NCAA uses the athlete's name, image, and likeness to profit, as well. And that actually had a verdict back in 2014, Lo. They ruled in favor of Ed O'Banion, but subsequently there was appeal, and that appeal was overturned, as well. So people thought it was a landmark decision, thought things were going to go through. Then the appeal came through, the decision was reversed, and then subsequently it stayed on the table where it is at now, up until now, in regards to that. Also, if you remember the 2014 national championship game, Lo, UConn, there was a guard named Sean Napier, if you remember that. And you remember they mentioned that he goes to bed hungry at night. Here's a young man playing at UConn who's generating millions and millions of dollars. And this young man saying some nights he goes to bed hungry because he doesn't have any money. So that became a big debate in regards to, how can these colleges and universities be profited off these revenue generating sports, which is mainly football and basketball at the collegiate level. And none of these athletes are getting any benefit from that. Now, on the flip side of that, NCAA is a nonprofit organization, quote, but they do a good job distributing the monies as well. You even saw this year on the women's side where there was the disparity in how they host the women NCAA tournament, and finally that was rectified. It came to light, and the NCAA now is putting things in place where now the women NCAA tournament can use the logo and do all the branding that the men do, which I could never understand why they couldn't do that as well. But with this name, image, and likeness, now it became a debate, and finally the NCAA could not put a hold to it in regards to these athletes being compensated, because now the states got involved, Lo. And once the states start passing these laws that saying these athletes who can profit off their name, image, and likeness, the NCAA came in and said, you know what, we're going to put it on the books, but we want to delay it. Let's put something in place. Now, what has happened as of July 1st of this year, 16 states now have allowed their student athletes, in regards to if they go to college or university in that particular state, can profit off their name, image, and likeness. 28 states have passed it. Only 16 is in effect right now. New Jersey, our state, is coming in 2025. So this can hurt their recruiting within the state for Rutgers and the other schools as well. California was the first to pass the state law regarding that. Then Florida came in second with that as well. Then other states began to ratify it, bring it in. But now what you're seeing, these athletes now can profit off their name, image, and likeness as well. And you're beginning to see that all over the place as well, where they're monetizing their brand, et cetera, et cetera. So it don't have to be a national brand. For example, if somebody's playing here, say let's take Monmouth University or St. Peter's University, small market schools. If there's a local advertiser or a local business who wants to use their name, image, and likeness, they can pay that athlete now to do that, whether they want to put them on a billboard or whether they want to have them blasted out on social media. So this is in full effect now. Here's the drawback to it right now in terms of for colleges and athletic department and the NCAA. How do you regulate it? How do you monitor it? How do you get your arms wrapped around it? How do the student athlete pay taxes with that? None of this was put into place. So the NCAA is hoping that the federal government somehow, some way can put some regulations in place to help them with this name, image, and likeness. Right now, it's pretty much like a free fall, but a lot of college and university compliance areas are going haywire now, trying to figure out how do we govern our student athletes. So there's some companies out there called Influencer who's come in, who does a very good job, has a monitoring system for the college and university to track the athletes in terms of what they're getting paid, who they're signing with, and try to get their arms wrapped around this until there's some legislation put in place as well. But this is huge right now. It was monumental as well, and a lot of student athletes are taking advantage of this right now.
Yeah, but who's monitoring the monitors?
Well, that's it. The schools itself have to put things in place because they have to. The NCAA, there's no compliance bylaws regulating this. There's no certain limit amount. There's no certain documentation that's being required right now because the NCAA was late on this. NCAA really didn't want to pass it. NCAA really want the players to maintain their amateur status, which they can. But NCAA said anytime a student athlete receives any outside monies, they're not considered amateur. And of course, they want to hold on to that. And here's the thing about it. When I was a college coach, part of the NCAA paperwork that they signed was a form stating that you're allowing the NCAA to use your name, image, and likeness to promote their brand, and you not get compensated for it. So the NCAA was out far ahead of understanding that this may be coming down the pipe one day. And now it has come to fruition. And now it's a free fall in this space right now.
Yeah. And with Ed O'Bannon, because at one time, your popular video games were college games before, the K2, NBA K2 and all these different things. It was the college game. And you could see your likeness. That's what Ed O'Bannon was saying. Hey, he's playing video games.
Absolutely.
Yeah. He's playing.
And he wasn't getting no profit. He pops up and see his name and see his photo and all this stuff. Him playing a game of basketball on all that. And he's like, wait a minute. That's me. and I'm living in a one-room apartment, struggling here. This is great, but these are the things that was happening, and now this generation and these student athletes are a little bit different. And the state, thank God for a lot of the state politicians passing the laws within the state that supersedes the NCAA. And now those states who have this in place law, if you got a student athletes get recruited by any of these schools in the state that have this, you got an upper advantage right now because they're going to want to go play for those schools in that state. Where if you don't have it, there's an opportunity where you may lose a recruit just because of their brand. And you see this coming out now with high school players as well. All this is precipitating with the top high school players, and whether it's football, baseball, or basketball.
Well, yeah, and there's different channels now. I mean,
absolutely.
When we came up, it was just a straight road. You get on that road right there because that's the road you need to be on. Now you got all these roads. I mean, you can leave high school and go overseas. You can leave high school and go into the G League. I mean, and you got all these new leagues popping up.
Oh, absolutely. You got elite sports popping up now, offering these kids $500,000 and $600,000. Of course, the G League, the NBA got smart and say, hey, now we're going to put the development part for the high school kids, to come out and do it as well. Of course, overseas, you can go and play overseas. Of course, when we was playing Lowe's, this wasn't applicable. When I played pro ball overseas, it was only allowed 2 Americans on the team. It was me and somebody else. And the many pro opportunities that are there now wasn't there when I was playing. I mean, it was very, very limited, as well. I was cut from the CBA, and you played the CBA. Then I had to go overseas and, play in a country in South America, Peru, that wasn't desirable. But I wanted to play pro basketball back at that time.
And parents have to get smarter too, because
absolutely,
in regards to not only the playing, but the business side.
And that's the thing that this company Influenza is, and that's a part of a lot of things I'm teaching now when they ask me to come and lecture to talk about financial education, the business aspect of it, teaching these young student athletes the business aspect of it, about their brand. I do a seminar called Brand Me, and I did this for a long time. And a lot of people didn't realize when I used to talk that you're a brand. Everybody's a brand. You have a brand, and how your brand is being shown, or how you presenting the brand determines which way you go. And that goes into another thing I do called create a value. And, you got to create your own value in regards to providing a service or need that someone is always going to want, and what's going to separate you from them as well. But you hit it right on the head about the financial education part with this generation, particularly student athletes, because they have no clue about the business side of it. They don't realize, when I was talking to a student athlete, I said, you're going to have to pay taxes eventually. They was like, taxes? I said, absolutely. You're going to have to pay taxes eventually, because the government somehow is going to come inside and going to have to start taking taxes out of that. It's pretty much like having a job, so to speak. So eventually, when the legislation or federal government, somebody get involved to get their arms wrapped around this low, things will go in place. But the most important thing now is teaching them, like you said, the financial education piece is huge as well.
I see Julius Allen on there, man. What's
up?
Legend. The legend. Yeah. Hey, so talk to me in these, final minutes here about the World Alumni. I think with the
World Sports Alumni.
yeah. Talk a little about that. And I think you had the legends and.
Yeah, I have my Global Sports Legend brand as well. World Sports Alumni, where I served on the board of directors, the organization actually I brought you, into. We work with retired NFL, NBA, track, boxers, in regards to helping them in a lot of different areas, whether they have their own initiatives, or whether they're looking to create some opportunities for themselves, whether we set up public speaking engagements for them, public appearances. If they're looking to start businesses, we can give them some direction in terms of starting businesses, put them in touch with some business experts. If they're having issues, whether it's medical or mental, we provide that outreach for them as well. And it's the same way with my brand, Global Sports Legend, which I started as an offspring to that as well, where I deal with a lot of retired as well as current professional athletes, helping them with their brand, for marketing, public appearances, signing on with different brands, et cetera, with that as well. And through that, I was fortunate enough, a company came in and said, hey, man, we want to do a clothing line with you. So, Global Sports Legend, I have a clothing line as well with sportsmen and women, sports apparel with that as well. Something I wasn't even counting on getting into, Lowell, but, it came my way, and I said, hey, why not, as well. But both organizations, particularly World Sports Alumni, we deal with retired and current professional athletes, helping them in those different type of areas that they're looking to get into. A lot of them looking to get in broadcasting. I have somebody that serves on the board with me that is a prolific broadcaster, besides him helping them train them as well to get into broadcasting as well. Yeah,
and before the pandemic, we actually were just about to do a couple of things before this pandemic hit. We were supposed to have a reception.
We were going to have our launch event for the New York division.
Yeah, right. For the New York division, and I'm a part of membership of the New York.
And that's scheduled for May 22. Providing, of course, what happens with the pandemic as well. And hopefully we can get that kicked off as well as bring that into fruition.
Yeah, and I want to get with you on the whole speaking. That's what I'm working on now, getting out speaking both, in person and virtually as well, on some different things. I want to get with you on there. And, as we come into this close, man, I want to find out, who is the person outside of a family member that most impacted
Well, I tell you, of course, we were athletes. I played every sport there was, and and a lot of people don't know I played football in college too. I was starting running back. A lot of people, Patterson is a predominantly basketball town, so I never really talk about it until it comes up on Facebook. I put it up. People's like, man, I didn't know that. And now that a lot of people know I played football, I got some friends say, hey, man, you never wanted to coach football? I was like, nah, I ain't want to stand out in that cold. I didn't want to do that, as well. But outside of my family, the biggest influence of me, of course, as you know, Lord, we played for coaches. But there was two coaches I want to name. My high school coach, John Parker, who was a Quaker. And it's very ironic. And if everybody don't know what a Quaker is, look up the religion. One of the best men I ever had in my life, who happens to be a white male, as well. Taught me humility, gave me confidence, really, really gave me guidance with my career as well. Even in high school, I was able to write an article for the local newspaper, a sports article when I was in high school. And that really jump-started me thinking like, if I'm not coaching, I want to definitely get into journalism broadcasting. So John Park, and of course, my mentor, Henry Baker Sr., who was my junior college coach, who really, really, a lot of people don't realize he's coached a lot of great players from Rory Sparrow, Tony Murphy, Lowe's, who led the nation in scoring, those type of guys. But besides him being my coach and mentor, we became really good friends. And he really helped me as my career was moving, outside of playing in the coaching ranks as well. Not just teaching me about the game of basketball, about life, being a black man in the society. He went to Alcorn State, growing up in the South. And there's a lot of things he taught me. And of course, having my dad there as well. So, I was very fortunate to have a high school coach who really poured into me, as well as Henry Baker Sr., who poured into me as well.
Wow, nice. Very nice. You know what's so interesting is that since I've been doing the podcast, I usually have some pop-on guests. And I didn't have any tonight, but I did reach out to a number of people who are, they coaching at the, the recreation or AAU levels. And, it's pretty interesting when, people say, this is what I want to do. Right. And then you get a person on like yourself, or it could be, and I said, hey man, would you like to pop on and ask Coach some questions? And I sent it out to a number of people who are aspiring to be, coaches or looking to get into journalism or, to help them. One guy I forgot, and I'm gonna apologize to him, Isaiah Rose. I should have hit him up. He, young man, disabled, but when I first met him, man, he knew everything about basketball you could think about. I mean, going back throughout history, you talk about reading, this guy knew everything. And he was in high school. And actually, Ben Gordon gave him an award during the summertime, because he was just popping up. Ben would ask him a question, he'd just pop out a name, a team, or who played on that team, But in order to be successful, man, like you said, you got to research. You got to get out there, you got to know your craft. And you got to know all about it. It's pretty interesting when people hear that I'm a professional. I play professional basketball or was a good college player. I can tell you on both of my hands how many times somebody said, "Hey man, I'm gonna ask you some questions about how do you become a good high school player? How do you become a good college player? Or how do you make it to the pros?" Zero. Right? They hear you speak. People introduce you, but they never ask you one question.
No,
right?
because
I used to ask people questions because that was
right. Well, we were different. We were curious. I do get asked a lot of questions, or it's the parents. A lot of the parents I may grew up with, or people I know say, "Can you talk to my child? They're just getting out of college." A lot of the coaches, as well. Even it's unfortunate that a lot of people don't use the resources that's given to them, as well. You would think, me being part of the largest coaches association in America with all these contacts and all these relationships, that these coaches would come on. I'm sure next time that they're hearing this, they probably would jump on and probably say, hey, I can probably, network with him as well. But and sometimes you have that, low. Sometimes people don't see the importance of networking. And unfortunately, this generation, if they can identify with you, if they don't know you to the degree that you, so if I was on TikTok constantly or whatever the case may be, then it'd be a different story. But at the same time, you got resources right here for you, and particularly on your show. If you bring in people like your next two guests are phenomenal. I'm glad you didn't bring me on after those guys. And I know both those guys. They're phenomenal. But these are resources that you can draw on. And often I learned a long time ago, I'm going to be around people that's where I'm trying to go. I know where to find people at that ain't trying to go nowhere. They're always going to be there. I know where they're going to be. And sometimes, and I give the youth this advice. Sometimes you're going to have to change friends. You're going to have to change friends in your life. You're going to have to make that move, as hard as it may be. But you're going to have to do that, because a lot of people that you think are your friends are not your friends. And you're going to have to change those friends, and you're going to have to move away from them as well. And that's the biggest thing that I see this generation having a problem with, Lowe's, as well. And
you flow right into my next question, man. I wanted you to say something to some young people, share an impactful message to some young person that may be out there, man. Because of the pandemic, because of all things that's going on, when you lose your season, right? You've been looking forward to playing on the team. You lose your season. Some teams didn't get a chance to play, but give some impactful or encouraging words to some young person that might be listening, or some parent that might be listening that will go on later and share and say, take a listen to us.
Absolutely, because what the pandemic has exposed a lot of deficiencies and a lot of things that's going on, and brought some things to fruition. For one, a lot of high school athletes didn't get college scholarships this year because of the pandemic. A lot of these players that would normally graduate from college had another year eligibility. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like declaring for the NBA draft. Let me give you this analogy. It's sort of like declaring for the NBA draft. You don't get drafted, but you didn't graduate from college. You didn't have an alternative plan. You didn't see any other avenues. But, it's the same way with this. If you didn't get a college scholarship, now what are you going to do? How are you going to go to college? What do you plan on doing? Et cetera, et cetera. So in other words, you got to prepare for life after sports. And there's not just a career in sports on the court or on the field, but there's, as you mentioned, Lo, there's a career in sports in other avenues. You got a lot of people doing the front office, administration, general manager, sales, marketing, concessions. All these are related to professional sports organizations that you can get into. But the most important thing I want to leave them with is understanding to create a value, meaning you have to create a value that people will want to acquire your services or your skills, meaning that you have to do something that's going to separate you from the competition. You can't be like everybody else, because if you're like everybody else, it's going to be so common. You're just going to be put in a pool. But you got to start thinking outside the box and create a value that's different from everybody else. As you mentioned, I always talk about artists. Like, I love Prince. Prince was different. Prince just came out. He was totally different from everybody else. Mm-hmm. Certain people created their own value and created a different way of doing things as well. So I would say to the younger generation, create a value, always have alternatives. And I'll leave you with this, and I put this quote up. People that don't think you can go far enough away from them so they can't see you anymore. So, and I live by that. And that's what I've done, because a lot of people didn't think I can go far. So I say, you know what, I'm going to go far enough away from them where they can't see me anymore. Meaning that you can go as far as you want to go, even though those people don't believe in you. But if you go far enough, go far enough to where they can't see you anymore. But trust and believe, they're going to be looking and watching you and what you do, as well.
So Daryl, we come to the close of this. I want to say thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. Man, Love you, brother. Man,
Love you too, man. I love you too. I'm still trying to get my golf game up like yours. I ain't gonna tell the fans how good you in golf. Anytime you get invited to a private golf club, that says something, man. That means you big time.
All right, I hear you talking. So thanks a lot, Daryl, man. I appreciate you, man. And for all those who came on tonight, I want to say thank you very much. I appreciate your support. Man, God bless you, man, and have a wonderful and powerful week. And remember, right, there's no finish line, right? Just keep going up and up and up. There's no end. God bless you and good night.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Lowe's More, the Blueprint Podcast. Stay connected and follow us at our website, www.lowesmore.com. That's LOWESMOORE.com. You can also join the discussion on Twitter at Lowe's More and on Facebook at Lowe's More Jr. As always, thank you for pushing your mindset towards a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking portion of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast to stay fully up to date with everything we're up to. Until next time, be kind to yourself and each other.
What they teaching is a joke. I ain't buying it like I'm broke. Insufficient funds for insignificant time.